Successful black CEO humiliated at bank, but his response transforms the entire industry. The first rays of sunlight crept through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Alex Thompson's penthouse apartment, painting the sleek modern interior with a warm golden glow. At 52, Alex had long since perfected his morning routine, carefully choreographed dance that set the tone for his invariably busy days. As he stood at the panoramic window, sipping his first cup of coffee, Alex's dark eyes scanned the New York City skyline. The city was already alive, a bustling metropolis that never truly slept. He could see his own reflection in the glass. A tall, distinguished black man with close-cropped salt and pepper hair and a neatly trimmed beard. The impeccably tailored charcoal suit he wore was a testament to both his success and his attention to detail. Alex allowed himself a small smile as he reflected on the previous day's triumph. The merger he'd orchestrated between his tech company, Innovate Tech, and a promising startup had sent ripples through the industry. It wasn't just a good business move, it was a game changer that would propel Innovate Tech to new heights. "Dad?" A young voice broke through Alex's musings. He turned to see Max, his 12-year-old adopted son, padding into the living room, still in his pajamas, his curly hair a nest of bedhead. "Good morning, champ," Alex said, his face softening into a warm smile. "Ready for another day?" Max yawned and rubbed his eyes. "Do I have to be?" Alex chuckled, crossing the room to ruffle his son's hair. "I'm afraid so. But hey, it's Friday. Weekend's just around the corner." As Max plopped down at the breakfast bar, Alex moved to the kitchen, his movements efficient as he prepared a bowl of cereal and a glass of orange juice for his son. This quiet morning ritual was precious to Alex. In a life filled with board meetings, high-stakes negotiations, and constant decision-making, these simple moments with Max grounded him, reminding him of what truly mattered. "So, Dad," Max said between spoonfuls of cereal, "are you going to tell me about the big deal? One you were working on all week?" Alex leaned against the counter, proud smile playing on his lips. "Well, you remember me talking about that small company, Quantum Leap?" Max nodded, his eyes lighting up with interest. Despite his young age, he had always been fascinated by his father's work. "Well, as of yesterday, they're now part of Innovate Tech," Alex. "Their quantum computing technology is years ahead of the competition. With their innovation and our resources, we're going to revolutionize the industry." "That's awesome, Dad," Max exclaimed, his earlier sleepiness forgotten in his excitement. "Does this mean we're going to have a quantum computer at home?" Alex laughed, the sound rich and warm. "Not quite yet, buddy, but who knows? Maybe in a few years." As Max finished his breakfast, Alex glanced at his watch. "All right, I'm to get ready for school. I've got a meeting with the board this morning to discuss the merger. But I should be home for dinner. How about we order from that Italian place you like to celebrate?" "Yes." Max pumped his fist in the air before sliding off the stool and heading back to his room to get dressed. Alex watched him go, a wave of affection washing over him. He had adopted Max 4 years ago, and it had been the best decision of his life. Being a single father while running a major corporation wasn't always easy, but Alex wouldn't have it any other way. As he rinsed out his coffee mug, Alex's mind drifted back to the merger. There was still so much work to be done. Integrating the teams, aligning the technologies, managing investor expectations. But Alex Thompson thrived on challenges. He had built Innovate Tech from the ground up, overcoming countless obstacles along the way. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood in Chicago, Alex had learned early on that nothing came easy, especially for a young black man with big dreams. But he had also learned the value of perseverance, hard work, and education. He'd worked his way through college and business school, often juggling multiple jobs while maintaining top grades. Each step of the way, he'd faced skepticism, prejudice, and outright discrimination. But Alex had refused to let those obstacles define him or limit his ambitions. Now, as he stood in his penthouse overlooking the city he'd conquered, Alex felt a surge of pride. He had not only achieved his dreams, but had surpassed them. Innovate Tech was a leader in the tech industry, known for its cutting-edge innovations and inclusive corporate culture. Alex had made it a priority to create opportunities for underrepresented groups in tech, implementing mentorship programs and partnerships with schools in underprivileged areas. Dad, have you seen my history textbook? Max's voice called out, pulling Alex back to the present. Check the coffee table, buddy, Alex replied, smiling to himself. No matter how successful he became, no matter how many accolades he received, being dad would always be his most important and rewarding role. As he gathered his briefcase and checked his phone for any urgent messages, Alex felt ready to face whatever the day might bring. Little did he know that this seemingly ordinary Friday would challenge him in ways he hadn't faced in years, testing his resolve and ultimately reinforcing the values he held dear. Max, time to go, Alex called out. Don't want to be late for school. As they stepped into the private elevator that would take them down to the lobby, Alex placed a gentle hand on Max's shoulder. Remember, buddy, no matter what happens today, we face it together. That's what family does. Max looked up at his father, a mix of admiration and love in his eyes. I know, Dad. We've got this. The elevator doors closed, and as they descended, neither Alex nor Max could have predicted the storm that was brewing, waiting to test their bond and Alex's hard-won success in ways they never imagined. The sleek black Tesla glided to a stop in front of Riverside Bank, its electric motor barely making a sound. Alex Thompson stepped out, adjusting his tie as he glanced at his watch. He had a little over an hour before his board meeting, plenty of time to take care of this quick errand. I'll be right back, Max, Alex said, leaning back into the car where his son was engrossed in a book. Just need to make a deposit and update some account information. Max nodded, barely looking up from his novel. Okay, Dad, I'll be here. Alex smiled and closed the car door. He'd been banking with Riverside for over a decade, ever since he'd founded Innovate Tech. The familiar faces of the staff and the efficient service had always made his visits pleasant and swift. As he entered the bank, cool air conditioning was a welcome respite from the growing heat outside. The marble floors gleamed under the soft lighting, and the gentle hum of conversation filled the air. Alex nodded politely to a few other customers as he made his way to an open teller window. Behind the counter stood a young woman Alex didn't recognize. Her name tag read Emily, and she looked to be in her early 20s, blonde hair pulled back into a tight ponytail. As Alex approached, he noticed a flicker of something cross her face. Surprise, perhaps, or was it unease? Good morning, Alex said warmly, pulling out his ID and bank card. I'd like to make a deposit and update some information on my account, please. Emily's eyes darted between Alex's face and his ID. Her smile seemed forced as she replied, Of course, sir. May I see your ID and bank card? Alex handed them over, along with a check for deposit. As Emily examined his ID, her brow furrowed. She looked back at Alex, then at the ID again, her movements becoming more agitated. Is there a problem? Alex asked, a note of concern creeping into his voice. Emily's response came out clipped and cold. Sir, I'm going to need you to step aside. There seems to be an issue with your account. Alex blinked, taken aback by her tone. An issue? I've been banking here for over 10 years. What kind of issue could there possibly be? Emily's voice lowered. Her words carried a sharp edge. This ID doesn't seem to match our records. And this check, for a rather large amount, I'm afraid I can't process this transaction. Alex felt a familiar tightening in his chest, a sensation he hadn't experienced in years but recognized all too well. It was the feeling of being judged, not by the content of his character, but by the color of his skin. I assure you, there's no issue with my ID or this check, Alex said, fighting to keep his voice level. I'm the CEO of Innovate Tech. This is a routine business transaction. Perhaps you could call your manager to sort this out? Emily's eyes narrowed. Sir, if you continue to make a scene, I'll have to call security. Alex took a deep breath, acutely aware of the eyes now turning towards him. He'd faced situations like this before, early in his career, but he'd thought, hoped, those days were behind him. I'm not making a scene, said calmly. I'm a long-standing customer, asking for assistance with a simple transaction. There's no need for security. Just call your manager, please. But Emily had already pressed a button beneath her counter. Within moments, a burly security guard appeared at Alex's side. Is there a problem here? The guard asked, his hand resting meaningfully on his belt. Emily spoke before Alex could respond. This man is trying to deposit a suspicious check with what appears to be a fake ID. He's being uncooperative. Alex felt a surge of anger and disbelief. That's absolutely untrue. I've done nothing wrong. I'm simply trying to make a deposit in my own account. Commotion had drawn the attention of everyone in the bank. Alex could feel their stares, could see the mixture of curiosity and judgment in their eyes. Some looked away uncomfortably, while others watched the scene unfold, barely disguised interest. Just then, the bank's doors opened and Max stepped in. Worry etched on his young face. "Dad, is everything okay? We've been gone a while." Alex's heart sank. The last thing he wanted was for Max to witness this, to see his father being treated like a criminal for simply existing in a space where some thought he didn't belong. "Max, go back to the car," Alex said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'll be there in a minute." Max didn't move. His eyes darted between his father, the security guard, and the teller, confusion and fear battling for dominance on his face. The security guard spoke into his radio, calling for backup. Alex could hardly believe how quickly the situation had spiraled out of control. He was acutely aware of the absurdity of it all. Here he was, a successful CEO, being treated like a common thief in front of his son. "This is ridiculous," Alex said, his voice rising despite his efforts to stay calm. "I demand to speak to the branch manager immediately." Emily's voice cut through the tension. "Police are on their way, sir. I suggest you calm down and wait for them to arrive." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. Police. In that moment, all of his accomplishments, all of his success, seemed to evaporate. In the eyes of Emily and the security guard, he was just another black man, automatically suspicious, automatically guilty. Max moved closer to his father, his small hand reaching out to grasp Alex. "Dad, what's happening? Why are they treating you like that?" Alex looked down at his son, seeing the fear and confusion in his eyes. How could he explain this? How could he make sense of something so senseless? As the sound of sirens grew in the distance, Alex steeled himself for what was to come. He had faced discrimination before, had overcome countless obstacles, but this was different. This was happening in front of Max, threatening to shatter the world of safety and fairness that Alex had worked so hard to build for his son. The bank doors burst open as two police officers entered, their hands resting on their holsters. Alex instinctively pulled Max closer, his mind racing. How had a simple errand turned into this nightmare? And more importantly, how could he protect his son from the harsh reality that was now impossible to ignore? As the officers approached, Alex knew that the next few moments would be crucial. He had to remain calm, had to find a way to resolve this situation peacefully. Not just for his own sake, but for Max's. Because in that moment, Alex realized that this incident wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the world his son would inherit and the lessons he would learn from this day. With a deep breath, Alex prepared to face the officers, hoping against hope that reason would prevail and that he could turn this terrible moment into a teaching opportunity for Max. But as he looked into the wary eyes of the approaching police, he knew that the real challenge was only just beginning. The next hour passed in a blur of tense conversations, phone calls, and explanations. Alex maintained his composure throughout, his voice steady as he explained his identity, his relationship with the bank, and the nature of the deposit he was attempting to make. The arrival of the bank's manager, a middle-aged man named Robert who recognized Alex immediately, finally began to diffuse the situation. "Mr. Thompson, I can't apologize enough for this misunderstanding," Robert said, his face flushed with embarrassment. "Please, let's continue this conversation in my office. Officers, thank you for your prompt response, but I can assure you there's been a terrible mistake." As the police officers departed and the other customers began to disperse, Alex felt the adrenaline that had been coursing through his body start to ebb, leaving him feeling drained. But one look at Max's worried face reminded him that his ordeal wasn't over yet. He had some explaining to do. "Max," Alex said gently, kneeling down to meet his son's eyes. "I need to speak with Mr. Robert for a few minutes. Can you wait for me in the car? I promise I'll be right out, and then we can talk about what happened." Max nodded silently, his young face a mixture of confusion and concern. As Alex watched him walk out of the bank, his heart heavy, he steeled himself for the conversation to come. The meeting with Robert was brief but intense. The manager profusely apologized, assuring Alex that there would be a full investigation into Emily's conduct and promising that steps would be taken to prevent such incidents in the future. Alex listened, responses measured and professional, but his mind was already on the conversation, awaiting him outside. When Alex finally returned to the car, he found Max sitting quietly in the back seat, his book forgotten on his lap. As Alex slid into the driver's seat, he took a deep breath, trying to find the right words to explain the inexplicable. "Max," he began, turning to face his son, "I owe you an explanation for what happened in there." Max looked up, his eyes filled with questions. "Dad, why did that lady think you were doing something wrong? Why did she call the security guard and the police?" Alex felt a familiar ache in his chest, one he had hoped his son wouldn't have to experience so young. "Max, what happened in there? It's something called racial prejudice. Do you remember us talking about that before?" Max nodded slowly. "You said it's when people treat others unfairly because of the color of their skin. But Dad, you're successful and important. How could they do that to you?" Alex sighed, reaching back to take his son's hand. "Success doesn't shield us from prejudice, Max. Some people, like that teller, make judgments based on appearance alone. They see the color of my skin and make assumptions about who I am or what I'm capable of." "But that's not fair," Max exclaimed, his voice rising with indignation. "You're right, it's not fair," Alex agreed. "And it's not okay. But it's a reality that many people, including us, have to face." Max was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Then he asked, "Is that why you always tell me to work twice as hard and be twice as good?" Alex nodded, a sad smile on his face. "Partly, yes. I want you to be prepared for a world that might not always treat you fairly. But more than that, I want you to excel because you're capable of greatness, regardless of what anyone else thinks." "I'm scared, Dad," Max admitted, his voice small. "What if something like this happens to me?" Alex felt his heart clench at his son's words. He wished he could promise Max that he'd never face such discrimination, but he knew that would be a lie. Instead, he chose honesty. "It might, son, and if it does, I want you to remember a few things. First, your worth isn't determined by how others treat you. You are valuable, intelligent, and deserving of respect, always. Second, respond with dignity and strength, not anger. It's okay to feel angry, but don't let it control you. And third, never forget that you have people who love you and support you, no matter what." Max nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Like you, Dad? Exactly like me," Alex affirmed, reaching back to squeeze Max's hand. "We face these challenges together, remember?" A small smile appeared on Max's face. "Together," he repeated. Alex started the car, his mind already working on how to turn this painful experience into a teachable moment. "How about we skip school today? I think we both could use some time to talk and process what happened." Max's eyes widened in surprise. His dad, who always stressed the importance of education, was suggesting he miss school? "Really?" "Really," Alex confirmed. "Sometimes, the most important lessons happen outside the classroom. And right now, I think we need to have a longer conversation about race, prejudice, and how to navigate a world that isn't always fair." As they pulled away from the bank, Alex glanced at Max in the rearview mirror. His son's face was thoughtful, processing the morning's events and their conversation. Alex knew that this incident had changed something fundamental for him, had stripped away a layer of innocence. But he was determined to help his son emerge from this experience, not bitter or afraid, but stronger, more aware, and committed to making a difference. "Max," Alex said as they drove, "I want you to know something. What happened today was wrong, and it's okay to feel upset about it, but we're not going to let it define us or break our spirit. Instead, we're going to use this experience to fuel our determination to create change. Do you understand?" Max met his father's eyes in the mirror and nodded solemnly. "I understand, Dad. We're going to make things better, right?" Alex smiled, feeling a surge of pride in his son's resilience. "That's right, buddy. We're going to make things better, not just for us, but for everyone who faces prejudice and discrimination. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight. We're going to do our part to create a more just and equal world." As they continued their drive, heading towards home for their impromptu day of learning and reflection, Alex felt a mix of emotions. There was still anger and hurt from the incident at the bank, but there was also hope. Hope inspired by Max's questions and determination. Hope for a future where such incidents would become increasingly rare. Alex knew that the conversation they were about to have would be challenging. He would have to balance honesty about the realities of racial prejudice with messages of empowerment and resilience. But as he glanced again at Max, seeing the trust and love in his son's eyes, Alex knew they would get through this together, emerging stronger and more united than ever. The days following the incident at Riverside Bank were a whirlwind of activity. Alex, true to his nature, refused to let the matter rest without ensuring that real change would come from it. He spent hours on the phone with the bank's regional director, lawyer, and various community leaders, all while trying to maintain his usual busy schedule at Innovate Tech. And, most importantly, be there for Max. A week after the incident, Alex found himself back at Riverside Bank, this time by invitation. The bank's CEO, a woman named Patricia Lawson, had flown in from the corporate headquarters to personally address the situation. As Alex entered the building, he couldn't help but notice the stark difference in the atmosphere. Gone was the tension and hostility of his last visit, replaced by an almost palpable sense of nervousness from the staff. Robert, the branch manager, greeted Alex with a handshake, was perhaps a bit too enthusiastic. "Mr. Thompson, thank you so much for coming. Mrs. Lawson is waiting for us in the conference room." As they walked through the bank, Alex could feel the eyes of the employees on him. Some looked away quickly when he met their gaze, while others offered tentative smiles. He wondered how many of them had been there that day, how many had watched in silence as he was treated like a criminal. Tricia Lawson stood as Alex entered the conference room. She was a tall, imposing woman with steel gray hair and sharp eyes, seemed to miss nothing. "Mr. Thompson," she said, extending her hand, "I want to start by offering you my deepest apologies for what occurred in this branch. What you experienced was unacceptable on every level." Alex shook her hand firmly. "I appreciate that, Mrs. Lawson, but I'm here today not just for apologies, but for action. What happened to me is, unfortunately, not an isolated incident. It's symptomatic of a larger problem, one that affects countless individuals every day." Patricia nodded gravely. "You're absolutely right. And that's precisely why I wanted to meet with you in person. We've conducted a thorough investigation of the incident, and I want to share our findings and proposed actions with you." Over the next hour, Patricia laid out the results of their investigation. Emily, the teller who had instigated the incident, had been terminated immediately. But more than that, the investigation had revealed systemic issues in their training programs and corporate culture that had allowed such an incident to occur. "We're implementing a comprehensive overhaul of our diversity and inclusion training," Patricia explained. "Not just here, but across all our branches. We're bringing in experts to help us address unconscious bias and create a more inclusive environment for both our employees and our customers." Alex listened intently, asking pointed questions and offering suggestions based on his own experiences in creating an inclusive corporate culture at Innovate Tech. As the meeting progressed, he found himself cautiously optimistic about the bank's commitment to change. "There's one more thing," Patricia said, as the meeting was drawing to a close. "We want to make a substantial donation to a charity of your choice, one that works towards racial equality and justice. We know it doesn't undo what happened, but we hope it can be a step towards making a positive impact." Alex considered this for a moment. "I appreciate the gesture, Mrs. Lawson, but rather than a one-time donation, I'd like to propose something more sustainable. What if Riverside Bank partnered with Innovate Tech to create a long-term program? We could focus on providing financial literacy education and technology training in underserved communities. It would be a way to address some of the root causes of inequality, not just the symptoms." Patricia's eyes lit up at the suggestion. "Mr. Thompson, that's an excellent idea. I'd be more than happy to explore that further." As the meeting concluded and handshakes were exchanged, Alex felt a sense of accomplishment. It wasn't a perfect resolution. Nothing could erase the humiliation and anger he'd felt that day. But it was a step in the right direction. Leaving the bank, Alex pulled out his phone to call Max. His son answered on the second ring. "Hey, Dad. How did it go?" Alex couldn't help but smile at the eagerness in Max's voice. Over the past week, they'd had many conversations about the incident, about racism, and about the importance of standing up for what's right. Max had listened intently, asked thoughtful questions, and even come up with some ideas of his own about how to promote equality. "It went well, buddy," Alex replied. "Really well, actually. How about we grab some ice cream and I'll tell you all about it?" "Yes," Max exclaimed. "Can we go to that place with the weird flavors?" Alex chuckled. "Sure thing. I'll pick you up in 10 minutes. As he walked to his car, Alex reflected on the past week. It had been challenging, no doubt. The incident had forced him to confront issues he'd hoped to shield Max from for a little longer. But it had also opened up important dialogues, not just with Max, but with his colleagues, friends, and now, with the bank. He thought about the program he'd proposed to Patricia Lawson. It was more than just a Band-Aid solution. It had the potential to create real, lasting change. And involving Max in the process would be an invaluable learning experience. His son, as Alex started the car, felt a renewed sense of purpose. The incident at the bank had been painful, but from that pain had come an opportunity to educate, create change, to build a better future. And Alex was determined to make the most of it, not just for himself and Max, but for all those who face similar challenges every day. With these thoughts in mind, Alex drove off to meet his son, ready to share the news and continue their ongoing conversation about creating a more just and equitable world. The weeks following the bank incident brought unexpected changes and opportunities for Alex and Max Thompson. News of what had happened at Riverside Bank spread quickly through Alex's professional network, and the response was overwhelming. Colleagues, business partners, and even competitors reached out to express their support and solidarity. One sunny afternoon, Alex sat in his home office on a video call with Javier Rodriguez, the CEO of a major tech firm that had been Innovate Tech's rival for years. "Alex," Javier said, his face serious on the screen, "what happened to you was unacceptable, but the way you've handled it, changes you're pushing for, it's admirable. I've been thinking, perhaps it's time we stopped seeing each other as competitors and started thinking about how we can work together to address these systemic issues in our industry." Alex leaned forward, intrigued. "What did you have in mind, Javier?" "Partnership," Javier replied. "Combining our resources and expertise to create more opportunities for underrepresented groups in tech. Internships, scholarships, mentorship programs, the works. What do you say?" A slow smile spread across Alex's face. "Javier, I think this could be the start of something big. Let's set up a meeting to discuss the details." As Alex ended the call, he sat back in his chair, his mind racing with possibilities. The incident at the bank, painful as it had been, was becoming a catalyst for positive change on a scale he hadn't anticipated. Just then, Max poked his head into the office. "Dad, can I talk to you about something?" "Of course, buddy," Alex said, gesturing for Max to come in. "What's on your mind?" Max sat down, his face serious. "I've been thinking about what happened at the bank and about all the stuff we've talked about since then. I want to do something to help, something more than just not being racist myself." Alex felt a surge of pride. "That's great, Max. Do you have any ideas?" Max nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah. Remember how you said education is really important for fighting prejudice? Well, I thought maybe we could start a book club at school. We could read books by authors from different backgrounds and learn about different experiences and cultures." Alex's eyes widened in surprise and admiration. "Max, that's an excellent idea. It's a great way to promote understanding and empathy among your classmates." "Do you think you could help me set it up?" Max asked, his eyes shining with excitement. "Absolutely," Alex replied. "In fact, this ties in perfectly with something I've been working on. How would you like to be part of something even bigger?" Over the next hour, Alex shared with Max his plans for the new foundation he was establishing. Inspired by the incident at the bank and the subsequent conversations with business leaders like Javier, Alex had decided to create an organization dedicated to promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in the tech industry and beyond. The foundation will have several programs, Alex explained. We'll offer scholarships and internships, provide resources for businesses to create more inclusive environments, and even work with schools to promote diversity education, which is where your book club idea could come in." Max's eyes grew wide as he listened. "Wow, Dad, that's amazing. Can I help?" Alex smiled warmly. "I was hoping you'd ask. I think it's important for young people to be involved in shaping the future they want to see. How about you become our youth advisor? You can help us understand what kids your age need and want, and help design programs that will really connect with them." Max jumped up, unable to contain his excitement. "Yes, that would be awesome." As they continued to discuss ideas for the foundation, Alex marveled at his son's enthusiasm and insight. The past few weeks had been challenging, but they had also brought Alex and Max closer together, united in their determination to create positive change. Over the following months, Alex's foundation, which they named Future Forward, began to take shape. The partnership with Javier's company provided a significant boost, and other tech firms soon joined the initiative. The foundation's programs quickly gained traction, from coding camps in underserved communities to diversity training workshops for corporate leaders. Max's book club idea became a pilot program in his school, with plans to expand it to other schools in the district. The young boy threw himself into the role of youth advisor for Future Forward, offering perspectives that often surprised and impressed the adults involved in the foundation. One evening, as Alex and Max sat on their penthouse balcony, looking out over the city, Alex reflected on how far they'd come since that day at the bank. "You know, Max," said softly, "what happened that day was terrible, but look at all the good that's come from it. Sometimes, the worst experiences can lead to the best opportunities for change." Max nodded thoughtfully. "I get it, Dad. It's like you always say, it's not about what happens to you, it's about how you respond to it." Alex smiled, putting an arm around his son's shoulders. "That's right, buddy, and I couldn't be prouder of how you've responded. You're going to change the world, Max. I can feel it." As they sat there, father and son, looking out at the twinkling lights of the city, Alex felt a deep sense of hope. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Prejudice and discrimination were deeply rooted problems that wouldn't disappear overnight. But with each mind they opened, each opportunity they created, they were moving in the right direction. The incident at the bank had been a painful reminder of the work still to be done. But it had also been a call to action, one that Alex and Max had answered with determination and love. Together, they were working towards a future where such incidents would become relics of the past, where people would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Alex squeezed Max's shoulder gently. "Ready to change the world, partner?" Max looked up at his father, his young face full of determination and hope. "Ready, Dad? Let's do this." And with that, they turned their gaze back to the city. Their city, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, secure in the knowledge that they would face them together, with love, resilience, and an unwavering commitment, creating a better world for all.